the audience out there that happens to follow us and stumble upon our channel, I'm hoping you get some good value out of this. Candidly, John and I connected on TikTok, which seems to be, not an unusual way to connect with folks these days in the social media world that we live in. And I thought it would be beneficial just through our conversations to have John come on as a guest and talk with us quickly about his business, grown it, the challenges he sees. And so that's kind of the direction we're going to take this engagement this morning. So John, just to kick it off, you want to introduce yourself and your company and where you live and all that?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is John Hamon. I am, I guess you'd consider a serial entrepreneur. I started my first company in 2006. I was about 22, 23 years old, I guess, at that point. And I just kind of always had this burning passion to be self-employed. My dad was self-employed, started his own company, and retired. And I just, want to kind of follow those footsteps. And so I live here in Atlanta. And I'm married, happily married to my beautiful wife Heather, and the proud father of twin girls, Caroline and Charlotte. So they are 13, and I'm adjusting to teenage life. So it's different, but it's fun. They're amazing young ladies, and I couldn't be more proud of them. So yeah, so I like I said, I've been kind of a serial entrepreneur most of my career. I started my first design agency in '06, and really was very green. I've always been creative. I've always been an artist. But I said, how do I make a business out of this? How do I take my talents? I've been drawing since I could. I always joke around saying I've been drawing since I could eat crayons. And but I've been drawing since I was a kid, and I'm like, how can I actually make this a business? My dad was a consultant, and he he kind of felt like, okay, well, if you're going to grow this into a business, you need to have like 10 of you and then build them out and make money on each of them. And I'm like, well, it doesn't really work like that because I'm an artist, right? And I said, people come to me because of either my style or the way that I do business or whatever. And so long story short, I really found a good path in the design, industry, and, began really building brands for people. It started with just logo design and, business collateral, business cards, postcards, things like that. This is really pre-app era. It was just, everything was kind of emerging at that point. I think I had a BlackBerry at the time, actually, when I started. So, but long story short, we kind of grew that to a 4-person company. I never really wanted to go much bigger than that, and ended up selling that in 2011 to a larger technology firm here in Atlanta. And went to go work for them for a couple of years. It just got too big. So long story short, that's really where I started my entrepreneurial endeavors. I went from there to work for some other people as creative director and things like that. But it's not that I can't work for anybody. I have no problem. I'm a servant leader at heart, but I just enjoy the freedom of being on my own. I think you can appreciate that. Being self-employed, it comes with its struggles and it comes with its learning curves. But I also think it kind of breaks you out of the mold that everybody's conditioned to be in, which is go get your 4-year degree. There's nothing wrong with that. But go get your, finish high school, get your degree, go to college, and go do that thing, right? So long story short, I'd sold that company. I started a new firm, which I still have, Take 4. So we do, brand development, design, et cetera. And it's allowed me to work with a lot of unique businesses and meet a lot of people because, they come in and say, hey, I need to bring, my ideas to life. Here's a sketch. Here's what I want. Here's my idea on paper. That's all kind of my past and how that pertains to Carat and how we got into this industry. I've always said I have a sort of a white collar brain and a blue collar heart and body, I guess you could say that. I'm built to work, and I really enjoy working with my hands. I've done woodworking. As part of our design agency, we have a laser engraver, so we actually get physical, tangible products, and I really enjoy that side of the business. It's just opened a lot of doors and things like that. I hit a point where I was like, I will go and put time into proposals, right? Someone will say, hey, I need a brand build, or I want a user experience project done. I need to build this app, or I want a new website, but I really need to, interact this particular way. And I hit a point where I'm like, I'm spending all this time putting, my talents and thoughts and creativity and again, leadership skills into, painting a vision for the particular prospect or client. And it's like, you wait the, 1 week, and then we get back with you and we'll let you know. It's just this back and forth. I'm like, I've got to a point where, like, if you want me, you know where to find me. And it's not to be arrogant. It's not to be, narcissistic, because I'm the most humble person you'll meet. But truly, it came down to, if you're not going to realize the value now and you're going to beat me up on price, then you may not be my client. So rather than waiting on someone to recognize that value, I'm going to go build it. And I said, I'm going to do something totally different. I want to go out and prove that I can take a very, what you would, I guess, expect to be a boilerplate industry, of guys with a weekend warrior pressure washer, and make it cool and make it fun. And I decided to do that with my childhood best friend that I grew up with, and that kind of birthed Carat, and I'll get into that in a minute. But yeah, that's really
Yeah.
my background is really branding. I mean, pressure washing. Again, I've always been able to work with my hands, and I've enjoyed. Been renovating this home for 3 years, so a lot of it myself. So I enjoy that process, but it was really never on my radar up until about a year ago to get into the industry.
Yeah. It's fascinating. I mean, obviously, a lot of different places we could go with this conversation. I'll start by saying I resonate with you in when you look at being an employee versus a business owner. I'm very
Hmm.
much similar, right? I've been an employee,
Sure.
a business owner, no problem either way. And I've tried to push this message out in different ways, John, that,
Hmm.
and I don't know if you see this on social media today, but I certainly see it a lot coming across my feeds. And that is this whole point of, like, you have to be a business owner or else you're not cool or your life sucks or whatever the case may be. Um,
All right. Right.
Now we're starting to see some influencers online coming out and saying the
Yeah.
opposite, which is a nice, refreshing message that, like, hey,
Hmm.
there is nothing wrong with a 9 to 5, being an employee for
Yeah.
somebody else. And so what Ted, my business partner, and I always come back to is just knowing yourself and what you want to
Hmm.
do. I think this whole mantra around entrepreneurship tends to get twisted a lot. And you may not know about it until you actually go do it and realize, I don't like this. I want to go back to
Hmm.
being an employee, and that's fine too. But this mantra around entrepreneurship that, like, you want to own your time and become financially free, there's almost that
Hmm.
undertone of, like, it's going to be easier. And I don't think it's that way. At least for us in running a removal company, it's actually the opposite. We're on call and we're working 7 days a week because we have a desire to
Hmm.
grow the business.
Hmm.
But in parallel to that, like, we like doing all these things because we're the ones driving the ship and we're controlling the levers, other than being beholden to somebody else who's making these
Sure.
decisions, steering which way it goes. So it really just comes
Right.
down to, like, your comfort level, what you want to do with your life and your
Hmm.
work, and how you want to balance things. And there's
Yeah.
never a right or wrong, in my opinion. So I just want to touch on that. But getting back into Carrot, so you talked a little bit about how you got into it and why you got into it, but I guess one
Hmm.
initial question is, it seems like junk removal, a very, I don't want to call it a saturated market, because I think that
Hmm.
term can be, you know, utilized in a sense where we don't have
Right.
analytics behind it. But I
Yeah.
feel like pressure washing, junk removal, any home service has been around for a while. And so there's people that
Hmm.
have done this, they've came and they've gone, they've been successful, they've failed, they've been successful, and they're still successful. There's all sorts of stuff going on with
Hmm.
home service. There's not a whole lot of things brand new coming to the marketplace. And pressure washing, junk removal fits into it. So what separates, I guess, Carrot from your competition, or how do you try to separate yourself?
So there's actually a couple points that I want to touch on there, because it's really, I take a very different look at this industry, and agree with, a lot of what you just said. When I look at why we got into it, right? I'm very close with Bob, my partner. He's like my little brother. We grew up next to each other since he was, I mean, I think we were next door neighbors from the time he was about. So we literally grew up together. He's family, and he roofed my house. He works for a roofing company, and I've just always respected him. He's always respected me. He's my gym bro. He's got me into weight training the last year, and really helped me turn my life around on that aspect too, just my health, mental health, etc. and just somebody I can always count on. And he came to me one day and he's like, man, he was having a rough day at work, and he goes, I'm just tired of working for somebody else. Like I know what it's like to be a very proud and thankful and humble and grateful employee, but he's like, I'm giving away 40% of my earnings. And he's like, I get that a business has to profit. I get that the owners want to profit, and they put the hard work in up front to bring us on as a contractor or whatever. But he's like, I could go and do this on my own, but I just don't know if even that's what I want to do. Maybe if I had a refreshed ecosystem to work in, and I could make I already run the crews. I know the hiring process. I know everything front to back, and I'm their top salesman. And I'm like, well, then you're set. And he's like, I just wish I could find it. So I'll kind of drive into what I'm getting at. So he goes, I wish I could find an industry where it's low capital to start up, low risk, uh, easy and simple cash flow, cash in hand kind of business, and something that is easy to scale. And I was like, huh. Like, Bobby, I think if those were abundant, everybody would be successful, right? And he was like, yeah, I know, you're right. And I was like, I tell you what, I was like, I have clients come to me all the time that are like, help me drive into this new industry. Help me be, the Apple in the world of Microsoft, right? And so, and it's not to say I'm some guru in that, but like I definitely can think outside the box and put myself in someone else's shoes. That's part of user experience and understanding, user behavior and what that journey needs to be for that individual. So I was like, I'm gonna put myself in his shoes. So I said, give me 48 hours, and I came back and I said, I got it. He said, what? And I said, like, we talked the other day and you said you want to know a business that we could start that is, all of those things. And he was like, well, what'd you come up with? And I was like, exterior cleaning company. He was like, hold on, is that a fancy word for like pressure washing? And I was like, yeah. And he was like, wait, hold on. Really? Like,
Yeah.
really? Is there money in that? And I was like, it's actually a very lucrative industry. I have buddies that have been in the industry for a while. I got a buddy that's doing well into five figures, every month. And I've
Mm.
met new ones since. This guy's actually local. And I said, here's the good news. You and the customer both get instant gratification. Okay. You're helping, add value, beautify, or improve the safety of the property, whether it's a slippery surface that you get an algae or moss or mold right off of. You're improving something. You're not just, yes, it's a Me Too industry, but you're going into a Me Too industry to provide a service that either someone doesn't want to do, doesn't know how to do, or uh, doesn't feel necessarily feel like doing. I think I already said that, but they either don't want to do it, don't know how to do it, um, or it's a convenience factor for them, right? They're making more money than it would take, in their day job than it would take for them to be able to do that on their own, right? They'd be losing money by doing that service. So I was like, that's where you find a void. So just like junk removal, it's easy to borrow a friend's truck if you don't have one and load stuff in the back and go drive to the dump and pay the fee. But it's a convenience factor, and that's what I help a lot of my clients with. I'm actually building a brand for a very close friend of mine, and I can get into that later. That's all built around convenience,
Mm.
And the second thing I'll say on it real quick is one of my business mentors, Greg Murphy. He's like my old brother. He's been there for me for many many years. And I hit this point where I was kind of plateauing with Take Four, and I was like, man, laser orders, Etsy orders aren't coming in. I'm putting all these proposals out, and I'm just like, I've done this for almost 20 years. Like, I'm just ready for a new adventure. And I was like, I just need to find the place where I can put my value and my talents in. He was like, can I just tell you something? I said, what? He goes, there's nothing wrong with preserving those talents for maybe a section of that, or even something totally different, and going into an industry that's a bit of a what I would call a zombie industry. I said, what do you mean? He goes, there's nothing wrong with going into an industry that is a Me Too industry that doesn't require an insane amount of artistic talent or skill set. He's like, it's okay to go into that just because it's lucrative and it's easy and it adds value to someone's life.
Yeah.
It's not a bad thing for you to say, okay, well, I'm this global brand strategist. I've built brands that have won, GNC awards and
Mm.
things like that, to go and find myself in a service-based industry. He's like, that's not a bad thing. It's just you being smarter with your time.
Yeah.
And it's okay to go into something kind of, I want to say mindless. You got to understand it. You got to know the chemicals. You got to know, the high versus low pressure applications. You got to understand how the machines work, the plumbing, how to market. I mean, there's a lot of components, but it's not like you have to be formally trained. You don't have to be licensed in our state, at least, to do this.
Mm.
And he was like, go after it. Go after it. He was like, don't feel like you're oh, well, my design career is, stumbling along, or I just don't want to do it anymore. He was like, still run take four,
Yeah.
but do it on your terms now. You don't do it based on someone's desire to, to bring you in when it's convenient for them. You put your price out and shut the laptop and wait for the call. He's like,
Yeah.
if you look too hungry for it, then they're going to talk you down a price. When you say, hey, this is what my time's worth and this is the value it will bring to your business, you have my phone number. He's like, you'll land more contracts that way. And I've always known that. And it's
Yeah.
true. It's at least been true for me. So, long-winded way of saying that, listening to my mentor and going into business, which some would say don't go into business with friends. I can prove that model wrong all day long.
Mhm.
But it's about boundaries and mutual respect, and we establish that clear lines of operational responsibilities and things like that. Harness his strengths, harness my strengths, and divide and conquer, and set those expectations up front, and you can rock and roll. So that was really what kind of drove it. Just a change for something new. Work with
Yeah.
my best friend, build something together, and just have a new adventure. Let's go
Mhm.
see if we can make pressure washing cool.
Yeah.
Let's make it where we can have a white glove treatment in the industry. um so I know that, again, that was one part of your question, the other being competition. Do you have any feedback, questions, thoughts on that?
I'll just say I love the angle in which you evaluated industries. And pressure washing is very um, thorough, right? And there's a lot of folks out there that will do the same, but they'll only use a
Mhm.
couple of those. And so I
Sure.
encourage folks to really take a deep dive when evaluating. I put out a video 2 days ago. I think one of the reasons why we decided to get into junk removal was because of the industry. It's an overall
Yeah.
waste industry, and so that to
Yeah.
me is a piece of whether you're going to have a chance of being successful,
Mhm.
or you're going to fail.
Mhm.
And for waste management, for us, we came to the conclusion that it's always going to be here, right? There may be
Mhm.
niches within it, like junk removal, that may go ebb and flow. They may cease to exist
Mhm.
in some form or fashion at some point. But we're always, as humans, going to be creating junk and trash that needs to
Mhm.
go somewhere.
Consuming.
So there's
Mhm.
going to be a need for firms that operate within that ecosystem, much like pressure
Absolutely.
washing is cleaning in general, home services. So
Mhm.
I like harping on figuring out what industry makes sense for you to be in, not because you think it's cool or you're going to have the best time in it. Like, cannabis is a great example of an industry that's kind of come on and now it's starting to filter off, and you hear horror stories about it, and you hear about all types of other ones that pop up.
Mhm.
It's the ones where, that I like to evaluate. These are going to be around for a long time. Um,
Stable. Yeah.
is key to look at. Another thing you mentioned was just what pressure washing does for the customer, and it's a convenience thing. I totally get that. Junk removal is probably even more convenient than
Mhm.
pressure washing, because most folks can figure out how to get their stuff from their home to a landfill, even if you don't have a
Yeah.
truck. You could go rent a U-Haul for a day, you could go to Home Depot, rent a truck for 19 bucks, whatever it is,
Mhm.
to get that done. Pressure washing, I would say, clear up, because we don't all do pressure washing here to just come outside and start pressure washing the house. But I
Mhm.
could figure it out, I guess, if I really wanted to. But the key question you should ask yourself when it comes to anything you do, whether it's pressure washing, getting rid of junk, am I going to go
Mhm.
spend time doing this over here versus over here? Is your time worth literally the time? And if John has determined, based on your analytics, your income,
Mhm.
what you brought in over the years, what you're capable of relative to the
Mhm.
skill that you've come to, hey, my time is worth 100 bucks. And if I
Mhm.
can get this task done for less than outsourcing it, I should outsource it every single time. If it's going to cost me more, I should probably look at trying to figure out how to do it on my own, right? And so I think
Mhm.
that's a key piece of just from the consumer side. If you're going to spend money on any service, pressure washing, smoke removal, gutter cleaning, door repair, especially in the home
Mhm.
services space, like what is your time worth? I would venture to guess that 99% of people have never done that exercise. Literally look at your income, all streams of income, W-2 gig, what you do on the side, and then
Mhm.
also what your hours are that you put into all that, and back
Mhm.
into that hourly number. And for some, it's going to be astronomical. It could be for physicians and lawyers, it could be 500 bucks an hour, 1,000 bucks an hour. They
Mhm.
outsource everything because they can get it for cheaper. For a lot of us, it's going to be teetering on that line. I don't know. Maybe I should go and maybe I should take my car to the car wash for $8 versus trying to spend the next hour doing it at home. So
Hmm.
it's just a different way of thinking. I don't think most folks look through that lens that way.
Sure.
Um, Moving on,
Yeah.
pressure washing business. Like I've obviously followed you for a little bit now on TikTok. I think your videos are great. How you talk
Thank you.
through your days, giving folks just really that insight into the operations of running a pressure washing company. But what do you,
Hmm.
John, think makes your company successful in the crowded space of pressure washing? Like, do you think it's customer service? It's how you market? It's your skill set specific to pressure washing? What is it?
I think it's relatability. 'Cause relatability can extend to your internal team, where, for instance, we have a line of people basically. I mean, honestly, guys we've met at the gym that are like, dude, when you're ready to grow and franchise this out, or you need another crew, like, please call me. And it's because we built relatability with them. They feel like there's a connection there, there's a trust piece there, etc. Then when you look at relatability with, let's say, a TikTok audience, right? Um, a lot of the videos that I see out there, and I like them, and I comment on them, and I'll continue to support other washers, with that heart, right? What I've noticed with a lot of them are a lot of time lapses and, hey, watch me wash this driveway, and boom, 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 and some cool music, and then it's done. And that's really kind of the trend that I've seen. And it works. It's great. People, it's an ASMR kind of vibe, right?
Yeah,
What I think has been helpful, and I said this from the get go. I actually, before we even started, I had gone in my notes on my laptop, my Apple Notes, and I wrote down. I woke up like 5:30 the morning after we filed our LLC. I woke up at like 5:30 in the morning, and I was like, I'm gonna get after it. Pour coffee, and I was like, I'm gonna write 30 days worth of content, and I want to document everything from what it took to start, the budget we put together, the equipment we said we were going to start with, what's our growth plan. I mean, I literally built out and the business plan, but then, like, segmented it into 30 days worth of content. Now, I didn't necessarily stick to that and putting it out there, but I will go back and say, hey, if you guys are starting, here's the steps you need to take to get an LLC, get an EIN number, blah 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 blah. So fast forward, I look at content on TikTok and maybe our success or our reputation. I think it comes down to relatability. Uh, I think dialogue is really I don't want to say it's undervalued, but it's just kind of, I don't know. It's just not as prevalent as I'd like for it to be. And what I mean, or at least from the videos that I watch, you'll get comments and things like that. But I think, if you can create conversation with people, and show that, hey, look, I may come across because I can brand this professionally. I may come across because I can speak well on camera, or I can narrate well, but I'm still learning. I'm still green at this. And it's about how I carry myself. So, in my opinion, you're doing two things. One, again, building relatability. Like, hey, I'm still green. I'm still new at this, and a very important um, but look how professional I can still be. Look how I can present myself. Look at the accounts I landed. For anybody that's going to watch this, I wasn't going to admit this. I actually told a gentleman yesterday that reached out to me. He's like, I love your content. He's out in California. It's power plant, I believe. And he had a question on how we landed a hotel. And he's like, I'm going after apartment home, blah, blah, blah. And, asked me some questions. And I was like, let me tell you something. And I'll tell you this too, David. That job in Nashville was our very first contract.
that's
So
amazing.
he was like, you're kidding me. And I'm like, no. I was like, we stuck our neck out. Now, I had done
Yeah.
some driveways. And I mean, Bobby and I pressure washed for years, for family and stuff like that. But that was our first build project. Now, I
Mhm.
didn't want to go out, out saying that, because you kind of build false hope, I think, with people of like, oh, well, then I can go do that. Well, we were doing that based on a relationship, to say, hey,
Yeah.
if we're going to go drive 8-hour round trip just to go quote the job, we're doing that because we're businessmen and we believe in long-term relationships. So that, I think, is what drives it. It's integrity. It's showing that, like, yeah, we're going to spend a lot of gas to get up here and risk not even getting the job. But they saw that we were willing to do that, and we're like, dude, these guys are incredible. And they gave us a freaking 10% off, and didn't even charge us for their hotel rooms. They took it on the chin just for proving grounds.
Yeah.
And some would say, oh, well, you guys, you didn't bill enough. We billed like $9,800, I think. And I'd say, yeah, you're probably right, because we originally quoted it at almost 12.
Yeah.
And but I'll tell you, man, I think it comes down to showing the guy, the 18-year-old that knows he wants to be on his own, the 25-year-old that's sick of his corporate job, the 40-year-old who wants a side income. I'm 40, who wants a side income to support his wife and kids, whatever the reason is, to say, look, if you can understand branding and understand your value proposition and what that means to somebody, and be a good communicator and work on taking steps on learn to be how to be a good communicator per se, so that you can establish a good rapport with people, and they don't feel like Joe Schmo's pressure washing just showed up to my doorstep and is door knocking me. you know know your value. And I say that all the time. It's really important to establish a baseline of what is my time, like you said, what is my time worth, what value am I bringing to the customer, and how good can I kind of be in putting myself out there. And what I'm getting at is, how can we go and prove to these guys in Nashville that, yeah, we're new. They didn't want to see prior work. They said, look, we're going to give you a chance to do it, all because of good communication, integrity, honesty, transparency, all the things that it takes to be successful in business.
Totally.
We're going to start clean. We're going to start, and we
Yeah.
got that job, and we got to bid it, yes, but we also ended up having to put a lot of elbow grease. We had to scrub every reachable area of that building because it was so dirty. It hadn't been clean in 30 years. And he's like, you didn't have to do that. You quoted and bid and invoiced to spray our building, but you
Yeah.
scrubbed our gutters, you scrubbed our siding, and I didn't. And you got all the rust removal, taken care of, which I didn't think could happen. You got 95% of that rust gone.
Yeah.
So it's now landed us as a premier go-to resource. I guess you could say a kind of a tier one vendor to have first right of refusal for all future projects, and they have 38 other hotels in their network. So again, long-winded, sorry, but I think it's important to state that building relatability and building content out there that isn't just watch us work, watch us work, watch us work. Show behind the scenes, go out of your way and narrate what your day's like. Give people a real idea, the good, the bad, and the ugly on what it is to be in business, because they're not going to look down on you and be like, oh, that sucks, oh, what a crap. And you know what? You're going to get your haters. You're going to get you're going to get your trolls that are like, oh, you're running a 4 GPM setup. No wonder it took you long. But you know what? We haven't gotten that. We got,
Mm.
man, an 8 GPM setup's going to change your world. And I've heard that from probably 2 dozen people. And I'm like, I can't wait. We can get it right now. We're intentionally slow growing this. So honestly, we're slow growing it to show that the young guns out there, the small guys, that you don't have to have a $60,000 rig or a $20,000 rig to go land a $10,000 hotel job.
Mm.
We are proof in the pudding, and that was our very first job, and nobody knows that except for you and close friends and family,
Yeah.
and Sam, who I spoke with yesterday. So I hope that's proof in the pudding that you don't build relatable content that people want to follow you because they're either learning something, they can relate to you, or they feel like you know they can mimic or mirror that in their own life and feel that sense of accomplishment. So that's how I think we set ourselves apart. It's okay to be the friendly guys. We don't have to be, the gurus out there. We're not gurus. We're green at this. We're still new.
Yeah.
So when we're new, we're going to own that and say, yeah, we're gonna share our journey the whole way through, as much as we can without boring you guys to death. And that way, if you have honest questions, you're going to get honest answers,
Yeah.
not the flashy stuff you see on TikTok. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Not all these social influencer type of videos. So I hope that helps explain it. I think it's integrity, honesty, and relatability. Those are really what we operate off of.
Yeah. It's amazing, John. And we'll start to bring this to a wrap here in the next 2 minutes, but there's so much value in that Nashville story. And there's going to be a lot of folks that look at or hear that story and start to poke holes in it and make excuses as to why they can't do that. What I would encourage the audience to take from that story is that it doesn't require you to go and drive 8 hours to prove that you're committed to a customer. You did it
Mm-hmm.
because you saw value in it and an opportunity presented itself. We're not always going to get a call 8 hours away or 4 hours away and say, oh, that's my opportunity to really shine.
Mm-hmm.
You can do stuff today in your day-to-day life in running your business to stand
Mm-hmm.
out from the competition. And what you highlighted
Absolutely.
on is even if that was a local job, just what you did
Hmm.
on site to go beyond what the customer expected was
Hmm.
incredibly valuable. And based on the feedback that you just gave us that they told you. You guys quoted 9 grand, you didn't have to do this. I mean, that's shining in the eyes of the customer. So for the
Hmm.
viewers and listeners here, like think of the little things that like don't just go through your day like you're just a hamster on a hamster wheel. Like think
Hmm.
try to
Status
jump
quo.
off that thing every so often and think outside the box
Hmm.
because and another piece of that, John, is like our days can get very monotonous and junk removal like it's
Hmm.
one job after another. And we've been in this 6 years and we've done I think the last number I looked at was like 7,000 jobs, which is
Wow.
insanity just based on it's the industry itself, right? It's very reactive.
Hmm.
Wally Sue looks out in our garage and says, "Crap, I got a bunch of stuff we want on." And that it's very transactional. So where you may do one job a day, one job a week, if it's large enough, we're doing anywhere from 4 to 8 jobs a day on junk.
Hmm.
But and so our days can get very caught up. What's the
Yeah.
next job? I'm on my way. That one's done. On to the next. Your
Hmm.
head gets cloudy because you don't know you don't think, you don't stop to think and catch your breath for a second and be like, what can we do
Hmm.
with that last customer we just left?
Right.
Leave a lasting impression that's different than the next guy. Because,
Hmm.
I don't know if it's true in your industry, but it's certainly true in junk removal that it's very commodity. Like, there's
Hmm.
a million people out here who can haul junk away. So, what are we doing as junk raider to set ourselves apart from the next guy? And to kind of segue into my last and final point here, for the folks that are running the home service business in general, it is what we found to be successful for us and how we've gotten repeat business is doing
Hmm.
all of the what I call the dumb and just not fun stuff really, really well.
Hmm.
When's the last time, John, that you needed something done at your house and you started to research on the market, figuring out who could come maybe take care of it? You seem like a very handy man yourself, so you probably take care of a lot of stuff by yourself. I am not that way. I need a TV
Hmm.
hung on my wall. I don't want to mess with it. I'm going to go online and
Hmm.
see what I can find and reach out to a network.
Sure.
Whatever. I can count pretty much on one hand how many times I've had a stellar experience with somebody that's a contractor coming to my home. And I'm talking about from first contact to how they got back to me, how they
Hmm.
communicated, how quickly it was. If they did win the job, did they get me on a schedule? Did I get a booking notification? Did they let me know when they were on their way? Did they let me know what
Hmm.
issues they ran into? What was
Right.
their craftsmanship on site? Did they do a thorough job? Did they track mud through my house?
Hmm.
When it was time to process the payment, was it easy to process payment, or did they have to like go back to their truck and send me an invoice 2 days later that maybe came through? Now I'm chasing them. So all of this stuff that's like very just innate for me, like why
Hmm.
wouldn't you do this? Is very difficult for a lot of home service companies, and my goal is to
Hmm.
hopefully bring a lot of that to the forefront so folks start to move in that direction. But that's why you see a lot of companies that sell to firms like private equity firms, they end up getting multiple upon multiple upon multiple because they put these processes in place.
Hmm.
The guy
Yeah.
that is just a one man band or he's got a small crew, been doing it for 30 years, who has a great customer base and has revenue, may not get that same multiple if he wants to sell because he doesn't have
Hmm.
anything in place where it's easy for another firm to come in and be like, all right, this is it. We can take it and run. They're starting from scratch. So besides the fact that it helps if you ever want to sell your company to have all these things in place, just you
Hmm.
operating it today, trying to get more business, um, all of those kind of cold, outdated things that folks never think about, if you're doing those things right, you're beating 90% of your competition all
Hmm.
right.
Sure.
And you can at that point start to take a step forward of like, hey, we charge a little bit more and here's why.
Hmm.
So you're probably kind of in that echelon of like, we're a premium pressure washing service and we're going to turn away certain clients that don't make sense for us price wise. And we do the same
Hmm.
thing. So that's what I'll end with. John, I appreciate you joining the call. We always like to end the podcast with a fun question. And
Okay.
not to put you on the spot because I know you want
No,
to do for
go
this.
for it.
What is the one conspiracy that's floating around your world today that you're like, that's entity? Is it aliens? Is it uh, none of us are actually humans? Anything that you're thinking about today that's outside of business? Like my wife and I talk about this overcame, or,
Yeah.
whatever the case may
Um, I have to say, not to get political, I'd have to say our government, just in general.
be. Yeah,
There's so many hidden things that go on that
yeah,
slip by, that people turn a cold shoulder to on both sides of the aisle. And there are really the double standards, like the government conspiracies, and what's really going on behind the scenes. Just I respect government, but just I also respect my freedoms, and I would
totally.
say definitely, again, on both sides, of the aisle there, government cover-ups and things like that, and trying to keep people safe and keep the swamp, nice and full. I would say would definitely be would
Yeah,
be one that I find intrigue in, but yeah, outside of that, nothing super crazy, I mean, like Bigfoot or Area 51 or anything like that. It's a little more like closer to home, just because it affects the end.
yeah.
At the end of the day, it affects the average American like me. So
Mhm.
I would say definitely, people aren't who, they are on TV, right?
Yeah,
And there's so many dark secrets in the background that we just don't even couldn't even scrape the surface on.
yeah.
So
And some of that
that'd be pretty much
probably,
it.
some of that stuff is probably best we don't even ever think about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I
So
know it's the truth. It's the absolute truth. Yeah.
awesome.
So
Well,
no, I
John,
appreciate you having me on.
I appreciate the time. I'll let you get back
Yeah.
to your day job, but we'll I'm sure catch up soon. Again, thanks for joining.
Yeah. Look forward to it. Awesome. I appreciate it. Thanks so much.
If you want to learn more, or if you're in the Cumming, Georgia area and need pressure washing services, whether that is for residential or commercial, go to caratpressurewashing.com or give them a call at 770-322-4177. You can also fill out the contact form on their website, and someone will get back with you shortly. See you next time.